Good evening. Hi, Pete. All right. Welcome to the Town of Beekman Planning Board this Thursday, July 20th. If you'll please stand. Mr. Crane, only if you're comfortable. Yeah, thank you. If you'll take notice of the exits in the back, down the hallway, and here behind me. And if you'll join me to the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a brief moment for all of our service personnel and military. Thank you. You wanted me to, yeah, do we get the mix? We should announce something. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. I got it. Yep. All right. So, for the record, Claude Rancourt is an alternate planning board member. We have a couple of members who have some personal important business, and Claude has been keeping up with all of the applications by conversations with me and reviewing our videos that are available online, as well as reading any documents that are sent to him by email. Also, we're going to push the review of the minutes until next meeting as a result of the lack of the other members being here this evening, because the other members were present during those meetings and would need to be here to review those minutes and approve them. So with that said, if you'll bear with me, all right, Dan? Any comments that we should review about the Pizzuto lot line before we
No.
open the hearing?
I think Brian should just give an update on where they're at.
Okay.
We don't have any new material to review at this point.
Okay. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. Brian Hildenbrand. I'm the engineer for the project. This is the Pizzuto lot line change. Again, this for the public hearing. We're talking about, we call it lots 2 and 3 of this subdivision. Lot 1 is not owned by my client, and the general plan is to do a lot line change between lots 2 and 3. This will create area on lot 3 to build a single family house where a trailer currently exists today. So we'll create a zoning compliant building area. Down below, closer to Frog Hollow, we have a submission into the health department. They get the septic approved, but we're taking through the process between planning board, health department, and DEC. Because the second part of the project is creating an farm access driveway to access the rear portion of lot 3, which is used for logging, and that this farm access will require permits from the DEC for a stream and wetland crossing. We've submitted to the DEC back in April. After lots of nudging and pleading, all I got back was an apology from DEC. So they are still under review, but I have no comments from the state as of yet.
We're going to put your your map up. Yeah.
So do we want to open up the public hearing, or
Right at left there, just in there. Yeah.
do you want to have a discussion first, or you want to go right to opening up the public hearing?
Let me see, is there any comments?
We'll have,
What do you think?
I don't have any comments, unless you want to have Dan talk about what his comments are, and then we can open up the public hearing, or vice versa.
I was just curious about one thing. Dan, do you have anything to say?
No, so there wasn't any new submittal prior to the meeting, correct?
No, because we had no outstanding comments. We last were in front of you in May, and it was decided to give DEC time, forego the June public hearing and come into July, but we still don't have anything in writing from DEC.
Okay. We have a number of comments from that May 16th letter as well, so if you can just start taking care of those, because I think we had anticipated some of those to be done before the public hearing. That was another part of the concept of pushing it, I think, so. There's nothing too crazy that you can't handle. It's just cleanup type of work, so.
Was the CAC, you mentioned in comment 13. I'm not sure if Cliff is ready. Cliff, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Dan, in one of the comments, he made a referral to you about this application. Are you prepared for that now, or?
Well, the only thing that, I'm not sure what you're talking about there.
Here, he's,
It's about the water resource permit.
I talked to Dan about it this morning.
okay.
There was, and you already covered it, there was a comment that Dan had about DEC, yes, DEC opinion on crossing stream. And I guess you said they haven't heard back from him.
Correct.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
So that's the only thing I'm aware of. I'm aware of the Dan's comment that asking the CAC to comment. You know, is that what you're referring to?
Yep.
Yeah, the CAC is responsible for commenting on the water resource permit that's associated with this project as well.
Yeah.
In the case where we have the DEC reviewing the same, historically, we've kind of just basically fallen in line with what DEC says. So that's why we're kind of waiting on DEC as well.
Yeah.
But that stream crossing permit and Article 24 freshwater wetlands permit also relates to the seeker in terms of what we have. Now, we do have a type 2 action here, but it is part of the environmental review that we do as part of the regular subdivision review as well. So,
So we deemed it already.
yeah, we did deem it type 2 already in the past, because it's technically a lot line realignment.
Okay.
There's no new building lot being created. It's transferring land to create a better building lot than what's there.
Good.
Has he met all the requirements to have a public hearing? Did he send all the cards in?
This is a continuation, right? Or?
No, this is actually new. It does say continued
Yeah.
on the
All right. So that's wrong. Okay.
on the agenda, but you're correct. That should be off.
Okay. So this is now, can I have a motion to?
I'll make a motion to open up the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So if anyone is interested in commenting on the Pizzuto lot line, all right, I allow a 3-minute time limit, but if you need a little longer, that's fine, as long as you're not being redundant. Want to give everybody a chance to speak. When you choose to speak, you'll approach the mic, speak your name, and say your address as well, and we will hear you. Is there anybody who'd like to comment? Approach the mic for the Pizzuto lot line realignment. No? Okay. So, with that being said, at this point,
Do we keep it open because we're waiting for DEC, or do we, maybe?
Yeah, I think we should keep it open. Mr. Chairman, I just had one comment from the previous meeting, and I want to reiterate that for the applicant so that the map conforms to it, to the comment, and that is, after the lot line alteration between lot 563,722 and 445,645, the resulting enlarged lot should be joined with lot 500,533, which is the rear lot, under common ownership to make one large lot and prevent a landlocked rear lot. So that would be just noted in the plan, concisely in the map.
Okay.
All right, that note's important because it will alert real property tax service to have one tax grid number for that particular lot.
That would be the land hook over the
Yeah,
tracks? Okay.
exactly. And it'll prevent that rear lot from be a standalone landlocked tax grid number.
talking about a third one, right?
Okay.
Which lot would you be combining? Existing lot 2 with that big lot on the top of the hill, or?
Yeah, that skinny backwards L. I can't even tell what.
Yeah,
what
that
lot
sliver is somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's.
Oh, existing lot 3 then?
Yeah, both portions of lot 3.
Right.
Right now, they currently have
There
two
it is, yeah.
lot numbers, which has caused a lot
Yeah,
of
it goes-
confusion up until
It's kind of weird, because it starts from here, and it has that little hook, and it goes down.
So that would be combined with the lot up on the hill?
Yeah.
I see, okay.
There's a lot line enlargement of that particular sliver, and that would be combined with the rear lot. You recall that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do.
Right now, we have 3 lots, we should only have 2 at the end of the day.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's going to be made clear, right?
Okay.
So I think that the board so is inclined should adjourn the public hearing and direct the applicant to comply with the review and comments of our town engineer's letter dated May 16, 2023. Want to make a motion to that effect?
And really bring it to the preliminary plat standards,
Yes.
which may or may not be in my letter. Let me just see if that's in there.
130.
It's at the very end of my letter. We suggest the applicant continue to advance the plans to meet the requirements of 130-20 and 130-25, but really for us to be able to make the move on preliminary, which should happen very quickly after the public hearing is closed. The plans need to, at minimum, meet all those requirements in 130-20. So that's the important thing, is just try to get rid of these comments and address 130-20.
Okay. Thank you.
Kind of use it as a checklist. There's a whole section right in there.
May 16th.
Yeah, I guess I don't see any harm in adjourning the public meeting because there's not really
Right.
might not much public coming to talk about it anyway.
So I guess the motion should also adjourn it to a date specific, though. And I guess that's where the gray area is, because if he's not getting a good response from DEC at this moment, that kind of puts us all in a...
Well, can we just keep adjourning it until we have the,
1 month.
We could, and then, if you don't have anything,
For the next meeting, I'll let you guys know ahead of
Yeah.
time. Okay.
but feel free to continue to
Yes.
update the plans and send them in, and I'll review them.
Okay.
We'll at least keep that part moving,
Okay.
all right?
Yep.
so the next meeting would be?
August 17th is the next
Yeah.
meeting.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing while directing the applicant to attempt to make, to gain all information from the DEC, and also to advance the drawings in accordance with the comments from the engineer, including advancing the plans to the requirements of section 13020 and 13025.
I'll second.
And I'll just amend it to include the May 16th date for the comment letter, Dan's comment letter. Okay. Can I have a vote here? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, it's 3-0?
3-0.
3-0, yes. Okay. Okay.
Next item?
Next item on the agenda is Active Dog LLC. And this is a continuation of the public hearing. Brian? Hi.
Yes, a continuation. At the last meeting, we were waiting for the county planning department to have their input, which we received.
Yep.
Yeah, so the 239 referral came back from the county. It's a matter of local concern.
Right. So, and there weren't any other changes to the plans as they were presented last meeting. Is there, would you like to briefly go over them?
Yeah, I mean, quickly, the Active Dog, the dog hiking business, is looking to expand their parking and driveway, their gravel parking on the wooded lot. The whole entire property is just used for a dog. You know, there's a trail network. There's no other buildings or structures. So just to handle an increased volume in the number of vans and to improve circulation, we've added a second driveway, or an extension of the driveway, and a second drop-off area.
So, Dan, you have any comments?
Yeah, we prepared a draft resolution for your consideration. Of course, we have to complete the public hearing process, but within that draft resolution was the way that the applicant addressed our June 14th letter, so there's only 2 minor comments remaining on that.
Okay.
So they've done a good job of meeting the requirements on the plan, so
Great.
now that we have the county referral, it's can move on to public hearing.
Okay. Very good. I have a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I'll second.
I'll first.
Okay, good. I like that. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right. Same rules apply. Anybody from the audience like to approach the mic regarding Active Dog? Mr. Crane. Mr. Crane, you can, if you want, you'd like to approach? Okay. Okay. Sure. And if anybody who speaks tonight, if you could please write your name on the public information sheet in the back for Aletha and the minutes. Good evening, Mr. Crane.
Hi, good evening. Bill Crane, 254 Gardner Hollow Road. I remember this project from a while back, and I thought it was a very good one. It's going to preserve open space. Just a tiny bit sad to hear that there's going to be additional parking, but they will keep it permeable with gravel, and so that will prevent runoff. The last, I don't know, several months ago that they first presented this. I had a question. Sometimes the dogs are on leash, and sometimes they are let loose, as I recall. And I was wondering what the project does, what the administrators do to prevent the dogs from chasing and killing deer. I'm concerned that all living beings should, it should be a wildlife protected area, not having deer getting killed or other animals. So I had a question about that and whether that's a danger, because I know our dogs chase deer, and they really chase deer. I can't hold them. They're off, so I just wondered if they're off leashes. I had that question.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment on active dog at this point? All right. Brian, would you like to answer Mr. Crane's question at this time?
I'll try.
Okay.
Yes, the dogs are off leash, but from the way everything works, the dogs basically hang around with each other. If dogs do run off, everyone is they have their phone numbers. They have some fencing in certain critical areas, mesh fencing to kind of corral dogs together. But there's been a few instances of a dog getting out of the pack and no occurrences, whether in this property or on their property, and falling of any attacks, human or animal.
Yeah, I guess I would just add one thing if I can. The applicant, Eric, has already kind of addressed this in the past at the meetings. I hate to try to express it for him. I know he was on vacation and didn't want to miss this meeting, but
Right.
So be it. That's where we're at. But my recollection was that his staff becomes very familiar with the dogs before they completely let them off of the leash as well.
Right.
They kind of try to understand those dogs' tendencies. They try to make that relationship with the dog, and apparently it's been very successful with their other site and this site so far with regard to not having dogs run off and chase things. So, obviously in nature that's got, there's a possibility that could always happen.
Right.
I don't think there's anything we can do to stop that, but I think that they do their due diligence to try to make sure that does not happen in as much as possible.
Thank you for that.
I was going to say the same thing. I recall from when he came the last time, he spoke on that issue, and as I recall, he was saying they do a lot of training with the dog. They don't let a dog off a leash until they're confident that they know the dog will walk with them and stay within their perimeter. And so it's some level of training, some level of experience knowing the dog before they allow the dog off the leash. That's what I recall him saying at the time.
There's a screening process.
Yeah.
There's no one-off dogs. It's the routine and consistency is there kind of.
It's more of like a
Yeah.
prevention measure.
Yes.
To train them beforehand so that they don't do this. But like you say, it can't possibly be 100% foolproof. But I think as a business, they've done a lot of this before, and they have the experience and know withal how to handle these dogs to prevent that from happening.
Seems like a fair compromise for the health of the dog, as well as the environment and other animals that may be there,
Yeah.
and people, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we were quite concerned about it at the time, but now he's been there. Has there been any incidences reported or?
No, no
Yeah.
instances like that. One neighbor last meeting had a dog come on his property, and Eric went with him after the meeting and saw where the issue was, and then put up additional fencing the next day. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the board? Claude? Anything from you? Anything more? How about you, Cliff? Anything from the CAC?
Well, it can be very difficult, my experience with dogs, to break a dog that does chase deer. And a lot of those dogs apparently that you're bringing on there are not familiar with the open space in cities and towns, I believe this act require you to walk. Country people usually walk along the road. So that kind of thing will happen. It's hard, especially if your daughter's strange. And people are well aware of that. And, anything can happen with a dog. They can break all the rules. I don't see that as a problem. My only issue is that there are a couple wetlands on the property, but they're not, I don't see any issues with them. You're kept away from them, and your trails are around them, and so I don't see a problem. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Right. With that said, one last request. Anybody from the audience, public, like to approach? No? Okay. Dan, anything preventing us from closing the hearing? Craig?
No, it's a type 2.
Type 2.
So if you want to, if the board is so inclined, they may vote to close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No abstentions, no negatives.
Okay.
So we did prepare a draft resolution
Okay.
as we discussed at the last meeting. I guess some of the things I'd want to just mention is on page 2, we obviously weren't able to put in any language that was necessarily going to reflect the public comment here tonight, so we'll revise that based on Mr. Crane's comment. But within the resolution, you've also got a few other standards that we normally have to go through. And we've already did this in the first site plan and special use permit. So this is really an amendment to it. It's generally a reiteration of the standards that this board discussed at the meeting when this was first approved. So you have the Ridgeline Overlay District, which is regulated by 155-10C. So there's 5 standards there. And also the Scenic Roads and Scenic Viewshed Overlay, which is subject to the standards of 155-11C. And there's 4 standards there that were previously reviewed and still seem to be applicable, as there's really no changes to the project. I mean, basically, the big change to this project is the fact that the originally designed gravel parking lot was built smaller than it was going to be on the first plan, and now they've got a second parking area that they're adding, so it's just a little more driveway, a little more parking, but the net impervious area is generally about the same as it was before from the original approval. Still nothing visible from any of the scenic roads, scenic view sheds. Nothing, no signs or anything out on the road that are of concern or anything to that effect either. So the other difference in this resolution is the self-imposed restrictions as part of the special use permit. In essence, numbers 1 through 5 are unchanged. However, number 6 has changed. That's the more vans, you know, for more clients that they have. So basically, we went through the documentation, and the proposal now calls for the 25 vans, which is an increase from the previously approved 12 typical or 18 maximum anticipated. So it's a slight increase from the maximum anticipated. Other than that, we mentioned, and I just mentioned this earlier, the only 2 remaining comments from the June 14th letter are listed in the resolution, so that's addressing comments 4 and 10 from that June 14th letter. The standard dealing with escrows and fees, and also just the applicant signing a copy of the resolution and filing it with the planning board for the purpose of indicating familiarity with the provisions of the resolution and acknowledging a receipt of a copy thereof.
Very good. And I'd just like to say one thing. If you could just express my respect to the applicant for putting this application through. It's a minor change, and it would have been very easy for him to just increase it and let it slide by. Says a lot about him and his integrity, so I just wanted to say that. Anything else that we need to do tonight?
So basically, we need a vote on the draft resolution as written with the amendment that I'll put a slight change in there with
Okay.
regard to the public comments
the amendment.
received tonight.
Yep.
So it's a resolution to adopt sketch plan and also...
Sketches, just the resolution.
I apologize, you're right, we should say that.
It's site plan and special.
It's site plan, conditional amended site plan, and special use permit
Thank you.
approvals.
Thanks, Rob.
And this is a type 2. The original application was deemed to be a type 2 as well.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to grant the resolution as stated.
With, you want him to say as well?
The slight revision of the public comment that I'll,
With
on
the
page 2.
addition of the public comment on page 2.
Yes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. No abstentions and no nays.
Congrats.
Thank you. Have a good night. Okay. So the next item under discussion is Nina Mason, accessory apartment. Okay.
Good evening, Michael Birch, architect for the applicant. How are you tonight?
Good evening, Mike.
So, I know we're all familiar with the project, but a couple of updates, just to keep you informed. We're still going through the health department process. They had a couple of minor comments, and I can give you a copy of our response letter to them. I'll read them off what they were, just so you're familiar. They wanted us to clarify where the BFE came from, where the base flood elevation came from.
Okay.
They weren't happy with just saying it was from the NAVID 88. They wanted us to specify it was from the insurance and FEMA. So we took care of that already. It's been resubmitted. That they wanted us to clarify about the bedroom count, put a specific note on there saying that the property would remain 3 bedrooms. So that was another note. And then the big one comes is they won't give us approval until you get, there's a catch-22. They won't approve it until we get approval here.
Okay.
So that was one of their other, and then they had a minor comment on the dosing. So it was 4 comments, they've been addressed already, and once we get the binding that we get the resolution tonight, then they'll sign off on it as well.
Well, I'm not approving until I get their approval first.
I'll see you on the sidewalk.
That's just a joke.
I know where you work.
You do.
Other than that, we, last month I did submit to you the existing trees on the property.
Right.
So that you can see that the front is pretty well covered.
Right.
And I feel you're pretty much in compliance with the scenic overlay.
Right.
You really, driving on 216, you almost can't see the house other than through the driveway.
And for Mr. Crane's sake, all right, because he had to undergo a procedure and wasn't available last meeting, if you could, we had a discussion about that beautiful tree there that...
Well, unfortunately, we looked at it, and it looks good from the street, but there's a lot of dead limbs inside of it.
Right.
So it's not, it could be pruned possibly and saved, but it's not going to be there.
And there were some other items that you brought up in addition to that. I forgot what they were.
It's pretty much about the plantings there.
Yeah,
They're right around there, and unfortunately,
the health of it.
Yeah, it's not, it can't really be saved.
And I think what you said, the additional building that's going on will inhibit light to it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
We would have to trim it enough so much that it'd be very little bit, and it would be, we'd really be cutting out the, any water getting to it.
Right.
And we'll wind up killing it if we tried to save it.
Right. So
But we are, even though we are removing it, we will be planting in front of the breezeway.
Right.
We have, we have landscape plan to go in front of the breezeway to counteract what we're taking down.
Very good.
And that's, honestly, that's the only tree that is in the entire project that has to be removed. We've tried to plan everything else around it, it's right in the middle of where we're connecting in, which is the only spot that makes sense to connect the breezeway to the house.
Any questions, Ron? Claude? No. No? Dan? Would you like to-
So we did prepare a draft resolution at the board's request from last month. The request within the resolution would be preliminary site plan, conditional final site plan, special use permit, and also the water resource permit. In addition to that, we have to go over the standards for the aquifer overlay and the scenic roads and scenic viewshed overlay. So I think it would be wise to just kind of go over the aquifer overlay. I may have to slightly revise the resolution based on what we say about that, but the applicant on his plans also had the standards for the aquifer overlay, although number 5 got
Yeah, for some reason, I
lost
don't remember
somewhere.
seeing a number 5 on there.
It just,
Yeah, for some reason, when I pulled them, because I pulled them right out of the zoning code, for some reason, the first I'm hearing
Yeah.
number 5 somehow, it must have been on page 2 or something.
so the standards for the aquifer overlay, that's 155.12D. Proposed action will not appreciably alter the subsurface flow of groundwater to private water supply wells and existing and potential public water supply wells. Do you have your responses right there, or you want me to pull them up?
Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah, the breezeway is going to be at grade, so any water, surface water won't be affected. It won't be, the breezeway is not going to stop it from going in, and really it's not going to alter any natural course of the water flow. And we are removing asphalt in front of it so that we're creating, maybe back that up, we're actually removing asphalt in front of it and behind it. So any water that does surface grade over it will be collected in the newly removed asphalt area. It'll be a grassed area or landscape.
And then the second standard would be that the project will not appreciably degrade the quality of groundwater through the introduction of sewage wastes, stormwater runoff, liquid chemicals, petroleum products, dissolved metals, or other toxic substances. I mean, quickly on that one, there's 3 bedrooms now. They're revising the house to be a 2-bedroom house, and then the accessory apartment would be 1 bedroom, so the sewage flows are unchanged from what's there today, so there's no change to that introduction to the quality of groundwater. The proposed action will not, this is number 3, appreciably increase the long-term risk of groundwater contamination through the siting, establishment, or expansion of uses which store, transport, or utilize significant quantities of material which is potentially harmful to groundwater quality. Simple residential application here. There's no different than what everybody else does. So we don't see any potentially harmful substances there. The project action will not, this is number 4, appreciably increase the long-term risk of groundwater contamination through the introduction of relatively small quantities of hazardous or toxic substances, which over a period of time may accumulate in groundwater. Again, residential use, this isn't anything that would normally be introducing hazardous or toxic substances. And number 5, the proposed action will not appreciably increase the risk of groundwater contamination through the removal of soil, sand, stone, or gravel, which provides a protective mantle for groundwater, or which is part of geologic deposits making up the town's aquifers. So the grading associated with this is de minimis. There's hardly any cuts and fills on the project. And then the next the next one would be 15511, which addresses the scenic roads and scenic view sheds. And the standards are in Part C. I think I generally had focused in my last review letter on C1, which is the continuous vegetated buffer. It's an agricultural use or an open field at least 100 feet deep shall be maintained on all scenic roads. So in essence, there are a number of trees that Mike showed you guys in the exhibits in the previous that are existing, and they're supplementing with more trees there. So
Yeah, you
the
can
concept
see,
is to
You can see on the map behind you all the existing trees that are there. It's really hard to actually see the house from,
Right.
yeah, from 216 right now.
And then there is the wildflower planting plots as
Right.
well, that count.
And we are going to add a couple of pines on the right side of the driveway.
Right.
That's the picture screen.
So number 4 actually speaks to vegetation, just about revegetative purposes for enhancing it, and they are adding to it, so that, I think you can say that C4 is applied to this project. Let's see, C5 utilities. Utilities should cross a scenic road or scenic view shed at the shortest possible distance. Again, this is existing utilities, so they'll continue to use those as they are. Structures, all above ground structures within the limits shall be earth tone. So I believe, and
We're going to be matching the drawings that are there.
yeah, but none of your structures are actually within the limits of the 100-foot buffer, is that correct?
I believe so. The main
See,
house, I think, is actually,
this is one that's, I've found this to be honest with you, a little confusing.
the main
Because
house
it
is...
says all above ground structures within the limits of scenic roads and scenic viewshed overlay district shall be an earth tone color to blend with environmental or with the environment and soften the visual impact. So the question for me ends up becoming, is it the buffer or is it the whole property, because the property fronts the scenic roads and scenic view sheds? And typically what we've done in the past is it's meant the entire property. But again, these are existing structures, so it's a little hard to ask them to paint everything to earth tone when they're not in that now, so.
Right.
But again, that's a decision by the planning board.
Yeah, that should mean all new structures. I don't think it's intended to mean existing structures. The spirit of the law would be for the proposal of the site development.
And the breezeway was white?
Yeah, it's gonna be the same color. The roof is gonna be the same as the house. We're gonna match the shingles, and the column's gonna be white.
Wouldn't white be considered earth tone? Clouds and,
I guess,
flowers and daisies and
negligible impact.
snow.
It's behind all the trees. It's,
Yeah.
and that's our discretion. And I say, I don't think it's.
And Rob and I just decided that white is an earth tone. Clouds,
Sure.
daisy petals.
We definitely are not gonna be painting it chartreuse. We're not gonna be painting it chartreuse.
No.
No, but the fact that you're intending on matching all the roof colors with the existing roof colors, it's gonna that structure's gonna blend in with the other
Choice group.
structures.
That's our intention.
Which, that meets the spirit of this law.
Good evening, my name is Nina Mass and I'm the applicant.
Good evening, Ms. Mason.
It's my intention to reface the entire, each of the structures on the property over time. Just have to prioritize what gets accomplished when. But I'm all supportive of an earth tone, however that is, statutorily defined. But for the time being, we'll ensure that everything has a consistent appearance until I can get around to new shingles and doing the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the planning board is sufficiently satisfied with the proposal based on the vegetated buffer that's provided, and the fact that the application of colors is intended to apply to new structures and meets the spirit of the law. So we'll incorporate that into the resolution. We'll incorporate what we discussed with the aquifer overlay into the resolution. And then the water resource permit is 155-52. So within the 50-foot buffer from Whaley Lake Stream, there's installation of a water line, the patio, the walkway, the breezeway, a lap pool behind the main house, and removal of existing asphalt surface. In total, there's about 1,746 square feet of disturbance within the buffer. And in general, the buffer impacts that we talk about on the standards for the permit decisions are under subsection I of 155-52. So if we go to that section, there is a section in that, Cliff, that does refer to the CAC. I had sent you this section of the code to generally make a comment on that. I don't know if we ever got anything in writing from you on that, but if you'd like to comment now, that would be appropriate.
No, I looked that up, and my only comment is that in the resolution here, you've pretty much stated the way I agree with it. You know, as the chairman of the CAC, of course, I'm not pleased anytime you go into a buffer or a stream. But looking at that, where that property is and the unique part, a steep slope right off the back, goes to the stream.
We're 14 feet above.
Accomplish a limited amount of space there. I don't see how you have any choice but to go into that buffer. And, you know, while the CAC is not pleased with that, I should just state that. But I understand that the way it's written when you, Dan put that in, I tend to agree with that. So no sense of, you know, bringing up the issue again. But I'll agree to at least say that, okay? So I don't want to state any objection.
We appreciate it, and
Understand, Dan?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, what we said in the resolution was that the applicant had reduced disturbance to the watercourse buffer to the minimum required to serve the project, and further determined that the limited disturbance is reasonable and necessary, which is one of the criteria for the standards. The standards talk about any practical alternative to these items, and the existing structures are where they are.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's nothing they can do to change that. The only thing that they could possibly control better would be the lap pool, but then you're not going to have a pool behind the house, which would be very odd because then you'd see it from the roads, and it didn't really seem to make any sense. Didn't seem like there were any alternative locations that they could cite this. And as part of this, one of the benefits is that they're removing a lot of asphalt in that area that now drains uncontrolled stormwater runoff towards the stream.
Towards the stream.
So there's some benefits to what they're doing here, in addition to the fact that there's not a lot of alternative location for them. So
Aesthetically, it's a beautiful spot for the lap pool too, you know.
It's kind of complicated looking
Yeah.
at the layout and trying to really figure out, you know, so I finally went over and walked around the property and I understand it a little bit better, so the comment still stands.
Is
So-
the area where the lamp pool is that lawn area now?
yes,
It's just, that's like the backyard for their house?
correct.
yeah, it's directly behind the main house.
It's actually, it's an area that's already fenced in.
Oh, all right, so it's not like they're removing riparian buffer to make this? It's-
Correct. No,
It's
it's-
already open and flat. When we contemplated this law, I was around when we originally contemplated this law for the zoning code. This was one of the issues that people had in our community that, hey, what if I already have a house that's right next to or within a buffer area? And we, at the time, said it's inevitable that enacting a law like this, there are going to be some exceptions to the rule where people already have a house that's right against in an area that's adjacent to a water course, and at the time, we'll take that into consideration in the future. So I don't have a problem with the way it's laid out. And I agree with all the rationale that Dan had pointed out.
I don't have any issues either. How about you, Claude? Any comments or questions?
All right, so in terms of the draft resolution I provided to you, then I'll also include that the planning board did not feel there were any practicable alternative locations to serve the project. So that's all I had to say about the resolution. If you have any questions about the draft resolution, be happy to answer them. We did reference our May 16th letter and the comments that are remaining. So there's comment 4 is remaining, comment 6A1 is remaining, comment 8 we discussed tonight, that's SRSVO. Comment 9 was just adding that standard number 5 to your plan. Comment 11 and comment 15, which was CAC review. So Cliff has discussed that tonight.
Just need a motion to approve as amended, the resolution?
Sure. The resolution, again, just for the record, preliminary site plan, conditional, final site plan, special use permit, and water resource permit.
Very good.
I'll make a motion to grant that resolution as described and amended tonight, including the conditions in the resolution.
Very good.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions and no nays. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
sir.
I appreciate all your input on the project.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Miss.
Mike.
And
Thank
thank
you,
you, Miss Masson. Take care. Good evening, Brian. How you doing? This is the Duchess Contracting Corporation.
This one should be pretty quick. We're not where we're at. Since the last meeting, we made some plan improvements. Bringing the site plan into town center conformance with on-street parking along the main corridor coming in and then going south. We had additional sidewalks and additional landscaping. I think the biggest thing that we did is we had some conversations with Colliers on a potential right-of-way dedication for a future left-hand turn in to the property. So what they suggested was giving us at least a 15, 18-foot swath in the front of the property to accommodate that future left turn if we ever need it. I know that was one of Pete's big issues that he brought up at the last meeting. So we kind of tailored the entrance of the plan for that future improvement if we ever need it. Based upon that layout, Colliers is finalizing their traffic report to reflect the entrance, possible future left turn lane, and then we're deleting the reference to the 90 lots that we had as like a phase 2 in that report. So we'll have that report ready for submission for the next meeting. Update on the buildings, we're finalizing internal layouts and architectural elevations. So we'll have that, we'll have colors and some samples that we can submit to the board. We have what we're looking at to show conformance with town center code. And then we just had a survey, it's been out to the site, so we have some additional survey in the back so we can detail that water sewer connection to Dalton HOA. So Dan did a pretty thorough letter going through the criteria that we need to follow for our future just to give the board an update, show good faith that we're moving forward.
Any reason for us to discuss tonight, anything about the sidewalk or if I remember correctly, I read this pretty quickly today. There was that, and then there was a private to a public road, right? Is that right? Or no? Did I misread that?
Yeah, so Bischoff Lane is private right now.
Right.
And the proposal calls for the new town road, which is the beginning of what's always been anticipated as being one of the town center streets. So it doesn't exactly follow the way Bischoff comes in. Bischoff comes in at, some 60-degree skew or something like that, and kind of traverses back to the Veer properties that it serves access to. The town road that would be constructed would tie into Bischoff at those properties. So those properties will still have access. But, from a legal perspective, and I'll probably leave that to Craig, obviously, but, we've just kind of been continuing to keep that note on there just because we want to make sure that if there's any existing private road maintenance and easement agreements or anything like that, that the people that are affected by that, if they have a say or not, I don't know, so.
Yeah, to add to that, we're trying to follow the mapping here. I couldn't tell where the new proposed town road started and where it ended within the sheets there. So if you could delineate that a little bit better. I'll by the next meeting, once I see that, I'll be able to guide the applicant and the board regarding the private road conversion, basically to a town road standard in the context of a site plan. And I have to, at the moment, the Bischoff Lane services these private roads, which is outside the proposed site plan envelope. And at some point, the private roadway that services the access for these private owners will be curtailed, and a new access road will be given in its place. And I'm going to have to just look into whether or not you will need the consent of the owners for that action. I am not sure, but it may very well be that you may need it, since they have deeded easement rights that are being extinguished. You'd have to give them new easement rights. So I'll take a look at that to make sure that legally can be considered.
Okay. And then there was the never-ending sidewalk.
So, I mean, he's showing sidewalk. as
I saw
part
them
of the
internally.
proposal.
Are they on 55?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, okay, I just didn't see that.
Yeah.
All right, good.
What's are you requiring any variances?
No, and I guess one of the things I'll just mention in here, I think you're slightly overparked right now. And so on the east side of the property, that travel aisle impinges on that 15-foot. So part of 155-36.2, which deals with multifamily development, says try to keep the parking a minimum of 15 feet from any residentially developed properties. And right now, that's the case over there. So I think you can just slide it a tiny little bit, maybe lose a couple of those parking spaces. It won't affect the layout, but it'll just get it away from that residential property a little bit. Other than that, I mean, this is all just, you know, the normal stuff on here.
Yeah, normal stuff.
I think in terms of the next submittal, if you can get us the EAF so that we can probably start the lead agency circulation over again. Because the passage of time and the change in the project really necessitates that.
Yeah, and we'll have our elevations and lead lighting landscaping further quantified. And hopefully next week we're going to be having a meeting with DOT on site with this project and the Summer Youth project too. We're putting the two together, so just maybe we can have an update on that as part of our
since there's a creation of a town road, I think that the highway superintendent should be also included in the notice of intent, so he can weigh in.
Hey, Brian, can you just remind me, there's a structure underneath the parking lot. Is that some kind of, can you explain what that is behind the building?
Yeah, so the intention was that the new town roads that are going to be created would be handled from a stormwater perspective with that modified pond in the front, and then anything in return with the buildings and associated parking lot within the parcel boundaries would be the storm tech units, subsurface.
Oh, okay.
Try to get the infiltration through the ground. We'd have separators associated with those, for pre-treatment and things like that.
So you have favorable conditions underneath the ground for that, and low water table, you don't have a high water table or anything?
There is some more out there. We're going to have to elevate a portion of the site.
Okay.
We'll go through that with our stormwater design.
Okay.
So about the water and the sewer. Now, I live in Dalton Farms, so I'm kind of familiar with the internal issues that go on there. And I know that, 90 was too much, but now you're within their parameters, right?
Yeah, we're with
So,
the MOU.
Brian, Dan, how does that work officially with Dutchess County Water and Waste? I mean, is there some sort of, are they considered an agency? They're
like a quasi judicial agency of
Yeah.
some sort, so it's.
Will they comment? Will they be?
They're an authority.
They're an
So,
authority.
so they have Dutchess County funding, but they run their own show. And they raise revenue from their users as well, so. In this case, as we know, they're a bit limited in what they have available for future expansion after this project, really.
From what I understand, so the revenue that they source is through a loan that all of the users pay into. And it's non-for-profit, the Dutchess County Water and Waste. So every dollar is accounted for in a budget that includes repair, and management, that sort of thing. Even cutting the lawn and that sort of thing. But that loan is up for, it will be paid off in 2024. And then they're going to be looking at the upgrades and improvements, and I guess there'll be a new bond or a new loan, actually, that to pay for those upgrades and repairs. So, at the end of the day, considering everything, right, there are rumblings that occur fairly frequently with the homeowners. Is there a commitment letter of some sort, or some sort of approval for the amount, right, of units? I think 60 is what they approve, and you're at 52?
The agreement was in gallonage, so it's 10,000 gallons.
Gallons?
Yeah, so if you drop that back to units, we're at that 60 threshold. plus or
Understood.
minus.
And they wrote a letter to that effect September 11th,
Okay.
2019.
That's what I was
So
curious about.
they have that allocation.
They have that allocation.
Secured.
Thank you. All right.
Right, and it'll probably be like what we did with the Lane Estates, where we worked with
Right.
Dutchess County Water and Wastewater with the pump station, and then coordinating with Board of Health on, the services that we're proposing. So it's going to follow that same path.
Great. Okay. I have no more questions. Anyone else here? Claude, anything? No. No?
Well, the applicant had asked for sketch subdivision, sketch site plan. So if the planning board feels that they're ready for that, you certainly can act on that tonight if you'd like. Other than that, there's really not a lot we can do procedurally until EAF, and then we'll do some circulation for lead agency, et cetera, in the future.
Craig, do you have any issues with that? Considering what you brought up earlier?
This is 239. 239?
We will, but it's not ready to send to them yet. just sketch site plan, sketch subdivision. The first steps.
Right. No, I have nothing to add.
I don't think I have any problem. It looks like he listened to what we have to say, and he modified the plan, and he's moving in a direction in compliance with the zoning ordinance. The layout looks pretty good. I don't have any objection to moving forward with the sketch approval.
And I guess I should just clarify, the subdivision component part of this is really a lot line realignment. There's 2 parent parcels now.
Right.
The subdivision would create a lot for each building. Will be on its own lot. And I'm assuming that the stormwater pond on the west will become part of, I think it was lot 1, I want to say. So there'll be a land hook or something to that extent, so that those properties will be connected by deed and whatnot in the future, and the town road will be running through it.
Right. Sounds nice. Just a quick thought. Will there be any need for any fencing around that retention pond on the west side?
It depends if it's modified with adequate benches, because we don't do a lot of surface stormwater ponds now. The DEC really encourages the green infrastructure practices, the infiltrations, the biofiltration type of stormwater management practices. In essence, what you can't treat with those, which they are limited by the soils on the site, and I don't know what the soils are yet, and you know, they'll do their exploratory soil testing, and we've asked to be invited to that when that happens. But then normally the last line of defense is stormwater management pond. And if you design those with aquatic benches and safety benches per the manual, you don't need fences technically. The intent is that, you know, I want to say it's 18 inches of water is in an aquatic bench, which is at a very slight pitch. So if something does fall in, it's not a lot of water. That they'd have to figure a way out, and then the safety bench allows them to be able to walk in and out easier as well. Hopefully not in, but walk out,
My point for bringing it up is that I'd just like to avoid any anchor fencing like we did for Dollar General. If it's necessary.
Are you proposing it? You proposing a fence?
We're not really at that stage yet.
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's like, just to show concept.
Right.
To show like we're accounting for the area, we'll dive deeper into that as we move through it.
Yeah, but I agree with John. If it's unnecessary, I think it'd be better if you didn't have one. If it's unnecessary, if it's safe,
that's where I go.
designed safely, then
Because those bushes are small too, in front of that fence, you know, so. But we live and learn, right? That's all. So, okay. Thank you.
we're gonna make your motion.
Yeah,
I'll-
sketch or not.
I'll make a motion to grant sketch approval.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay.
And that's sketch subdivision and sketch
And
site.
sketch site plan as well.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. No abstentions and no nays. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, so, Samana Estates, residential subdivision.
See how efficient we're working? We should reduce down to 3 members. Much more efficient, streamlined.
Whole business. Is this on the?
Green Lane and Beekman Road, yeah.
It's on that,
Right there, right.
Beekman and Green Haven.
Yeah.
Those trees are there. It's right across from that pond, that lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Mike?
Good.
Doing?
So last week, we were before the planning board, we did a pre-application submittal on this, just to kind of get some feedback from the board and so forth. So at this time, we've made a formal application to the board. The plan reflects generally what was presented to you at the pre-application meeting. This is a 5-lot residential subdivision. Parcel altogether is about a little over 6 acres. We're in our 45 zone, so the math, the way it kind of works out, is a 5-lot subdivision. So fairly straightforward. We're at the corner of the intersection of Beacon Road and Greenhaven Road. All of the lots are proposed to have access off of Beacon Road.
Give me 1 second, Mike. Okay, sorry about that.
Yep, which are county roads. So we have actually been out on site with representatives from county DPW related to the access points and so forth. The ones at Greenhaven Road are pretty straightforward, and we don't see any other improvements to get those driveways in. The ones coming off of Beacon Road, we're gonna have to do a little bit of shaving on some of the road edges and so forth to provide for proper site distance, but we're gonna get those site distance information on there, as well as the grading, and then we'll make that formal submitted to them for that conceptual approval, which is pointed out in Dan's letter. One of the other things that we've done is we went ahead and we've got our soil tests done out there. We kind of jumped ahead on that. We didn't see, based upon the input we got from the board at the previous meeting, and really how it all kind of put together once we got a formal survey, there wasn't a lot of room for movement, so we felt confident enough to go out there and actually, do those soil tests out there. So what reflects on this plan does reflect the soil testing that was done out there. So again, another item that, brings the project a little tighter together itself. So again, it's fairly straightforward. The survey that we prepared does provide for tree locations, and knowing that the fire department owns the property to the south, it's a fairly large property. What we've done is we've kept the houses not directly on Beacon Road. We kind of split the difference, okay, to make sure we had the room for the wells and the septics and all that good stuff. And we do provide for, somewhat of a buffer on the backside of those lots. We didn't want to have the houses directly on Beacon Road, but we didn't want to necessarily have them push back any further than they needed to, pending something happening there in the future. I know there's nothing proposed there at this time. So, long and short, we can go through certainly Dan's letter. It looked pretty thorough, and it didn't look too bad to us, but we're here to move forward, and hopefully coming out of this, there really are 3 agencies that we're going to deal with. One is the planning board, one is the Dutchess County Department of Public Works, and then the other is the health department. Those are the big agencies. So, as understood, we probably would circulate for lead agency on this as long as the board was comfortable with this layout again. And then we'd like to move forward with some kind of sketch. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I think Mike pretty much addressed most of the stuff in there. I think the one thing I had mentioned in here, there is a sketch plan requirement that says provide the boundaries of the contiguous owned lands. So the same owner owns 2 parcels. At one point, they were all one. And Craig might have to help me out on this one, but the county roads that bifurcate the property, in essence, created like a de facto subdivision, and they were able to get tax maps assigned, tax ID numbers assigned to each one separately. So now they're 3 separate parcels as we understand it, 3 separate tax ID numbers. And as a result of the road being there, my comment for 2E might not be applicable anymore, because I think Craig's
my interpretation
advice on that.
My interpretation is that the county roads actually naturally made this a de facto subdivision, and that the applicant didn't cause that because it was like that before he even acquired it, and that particular requirement under that code section should be relaxed. I don't interpret it to be contiguous.
And maybe just as a quick point of history here, right? So we had this property here, we had the other, it was a smaller, let's say 2-acre piece on the other side of Green Haven. And on the other side of Beacon Road, it was a much larger piece. And right, because of those county roads there, they petitioned to the county to provide tax grid numbers separately for all of them, right? So now we have a separate tax grid number. They have closed on the property, they own the property. That doesn't necessarily show up now on the Dutchess County parcel access because it was a month ago. But they in fact...
Oh, LMPH is now the owner?
They own
Okay.
it, yeah. So we'll
Yeah,
give
you just have to
we'll
update
give you that
the-
absolute stuff, but yeah, that's everything should be tightened up.
Here, this parcel is right here, one parcel. Oh, sure ain't showing it around.
Yeah, so if you can just update that application then, because I think that still had Spiro Realty as the owner. And then that way all the documents can be
But they never changed it.
put together. I don't think the EAF says that. I think the EAF only has the project sponsor. So, because what we'd want to do is we would want to get the EAF updated if it needed to be for that case. But if it's not, then we can probably move forward with that circulation.
It's not with, this is submission, but we'll just verify that it's all good on there.
And one of those requirements for sketch is also proof of ownership. So if you can get us a copy of the deed that they just executed for
I think they gave
the.
me a copy, so if it didn't make it into this, we'll give it here just to
Okay.
close that door.
Can I just ask a couple quick questions? Have we done any due diligence on determining if there's no chance there's wetlands there? In other words, have you looked in at the soils map? Is there any potential wetland indicators like hydric soils or anything like that?
There weren't any hydric soils listed. There weren't any wetlands shown on the GIS mapping. I think the EAF, let me just see something here. The EAF identifies wetlands though, which was kind of odd because they normally go off the same GIS that I would look at. So I thought that was a little odd, but
I think when it's in proximity to, they'll also red flag that. You know.
it might just be a proximity thing. So that was one of our comments, was also since they have to address the bog turtle, the people that do those bog turtle habitat assessments and the Indiana bat habitat assessments typically also do wetlands, and they'll look for wetlands on the site as part of determining if there's habitat. So we did ask for a report on that, and so that'll help determine and close the chapter on the wetlands if there are none.
Yeah, Dan's correct. So we've already had discussions with our biologist and we're setting that up, so we'll verify that.
All right, good.
This walkthrough.
That's great. And as far as the location of tree removals, am I correct in saying that your showing of these this rigid line, that squiggly, there you go, that's the technical term, the squiggly line. Anything within that squiggly, on the inside of that squiggly line, trees are going to be removed. Is that correct?
That's what's proposed. That being said, too, we're speaking to the owner and the applicants. You know, it's 6 acre piece, it's a 1 acre zone plus or minus. These lots are fairly close proximity to each other, so, you know, we want to still provide some separation between the homes and so forth. So I think, you know, due diligence is gonna be done while they're out there actually, you know, setting home sites and things such as that. Try and keep that stuff to the minimal. There may be some that we show just conservative removal, which may stay. You know, these are just areas of proposed homes. They're not exact footprints. You know, so I think they're pretty conservative for what's being proposed out there. So if there ends up being a smaller type footprint, then maybe we can certainly save a few more.
All right. I mean, I just wanted to be clear what we're voting on as far as tree removals. So, I mean, actually, maybe we could be more definitive as we progress in the drawings, just showing X's on the trees that are being removed. I mean, I appreciate you showed all the trees, that's great. And,
Well, you won't see a plan from my office without trees on it.
right, okay. month, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So and I appreciate the fact that the intent, I can see, and I get what you're saying, there's adjustments that need to be made, because these are just, general locations of the house, but the intent of the map shows tree buffers between the lots, which I think is a good thing. You should have a buffer on both sides of the property line. So I think that's all I have to say at this point.
Just as a personal observation, right next to the vineyard here, I don't mean to call it a vineyard, but it is.
The vineyard.
It's, what's the gentleman, he owns the restaurant in
Spaccarelli.
Spaccarelli, right.
Okay.
So if you head west,
Out
yeah,
this
right,
way. He's
west.
up on the left, right?
Yeah, he's on the left, so just beyond him, you look at the front lawn of that house there. The way that, they preserve those trees as a part of their lawn. For the sake of these future property owners, might be a consideration, given that this is on a corner and off of Beekman Road and on Green Haven Road, for privacy, because it's very hard to reproduce a 20, 30, 40-year-old tree, right? So within that squiggly line, what I'm suggesting, I'm not looking to impede the construction process, and you have all of the other septic and other issues to contend with, but just if you keep in your mind that concept, I think it would work well here.
Yeah, I think, don't forget, we start at lot 1 all the way at the top and work our way, but those houses coming off of Beacon Road, there is a fair, and those septic are proposing that up there.
Yeah.
So there is, I can see where that would be effective, where it would be similar to what's going on there.
Right.
I mean, it's a pretty heavily traveled road, and some buffer for their homes
Yeah.
would be a plus.
I think it would work for everybody, the community and the future residents. And they could always remove them themselves if they didn't want them, right? So I think at the end of the day, it would save the applicant money too, if he approached it that way. So. Clark, anything? No. You? No?
Looks good.
Okay. Dan, would you like us to move forward?
Yes, so
I think it should be said, so Rob's comment should be, maybe mentioned in the motion, that the X's.
I put that down on my list of my notes as well. So generally, what he's looking for at this point would just be a sketch subdivision, which you can certainly talk about trying to maintain vegetative buffers between the lots and showing the trees that are to be removed with X's. That's definitely something that we would want to do as the plan advances, as he gets full septic system designs, grading of the driveways. You're establishing your finished floors in your houses, you're doing your fine grading around the houses, where the disturbances are going to be really focused at that point, and then you can start identifying which trees will have to go as part of that. So it's not necessarily imperative that in my opinion, that he shows that for the sketch approval, but it's noted in as we move forward. We'll definitely make sure that the board has the opportunity to review that. So that would be sketch subdivision if you choose to do so, and then authorizing the planning department to circulate all the supporting documents to the interested and involved agencies, with the intent of this planning board acting as lead agency for seeker for a coordinated review. We believe it's unlisted action. So the interested and involved agencies we have listed right now are the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health, Dutchess County Department of Public Works, the Beekman Conservation Advisory Council, and the Beekman Fire Department. There are no town roads proposed or existing for this application, so there's no highway involved. No DOT is no state roads or anything like that. No SHPO as far as I saw from the EAF either. There's no historic or archaeological issues here, so that would be the list that we would circulate to for intent to act as lead agency.
So there's two actions here then? One
Oh yeah, there would be two separate actions, yeah. And the 30-day with the seeker circulation, we're supposed to provide the other agencies 30 days to be able to respond. Normally what we ask for is, A, do you object to the planning board acting as lead agency on the seeker review here? And B, if you don't, what are your preliminary comments for the applicant to be able to address?
So we would be making a resolution to authorize the planning department to send out lead agency notice,
Yeah.
but we're not voting on the actual
No.
on
No,
this
you would,
action. Not
it's
yet.
just declaring your intent to act as lead agency, and so the declaration for a coordinated review means you have to send out the notice to the involved and interested agencies and making sure that they don't object.
All right, so why don't we do that one first? I'll make a motion to authorize our planning department to send out lead agency notice to all interested agencies.
And that will be acting as lead agency, is that right?
Only if there's no objections.
No objections.
And that will be
understood.
declaring lead agency.
So we wait the requisite 30 days.
Uh-huh.
So technically, the September meeting would be the first time you could actually declare yourselves lead agency, because 30 days, they're not going to be able to send this out until Monday
Okay.
at earliest.
Okay.
So that'd be the 24th of July already. Even if it was today, it still wouldn't meet the 30 days.
So
Okay.
if the county comes in after 32 days, we have the
They
power
almost never do that.
to declare
I mean,
ourselves lead
the-
agency because they're late, right?
Hardly any agency really would
Right.
object.
Sometimes, like DEC will want to do their own review,
Right.
their own secret review. And I think in those cases, we're still lead agency, but they do a concurrent review or something like that. I've heard that happen, but the vast majority of times, we declare lead agency. They either don't get back to us or they get back to us and let us know that that's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll send a letter and get back to us and say, that's okay, but we want, make sure you consider this.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll come in with the same, endangered species that Mike's already identified in the environmental assessment form, because they're gonna use that same database. The DEC is actually more active on a lead agency situation when there's actually a conflict between two agencies that wanna serve. And in those cases, they step in and help mediate that process.
All right, there's a motion on the table?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions and no nays.
Okay, and I'll get Aletha an updated lead agency circulation letter based on that. We did provide you with a draft. Those are the agencies we see right now.
Okay. And I'll make a motion for subdivision sketch approval.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And no abstentions.
I think, Mike, the biggest thing for you to do in terms of advancing the process would be trying to get as much of the 130-20, the preliminary plat content, incorporated into the whole set.
That'd be the natural next iteration.
Yeah, and that's technically, Craig and I have been doing some review of our code because the planning board has had some issues with some public hearings. And in order for us to be able to make that closure of the public hearing, we have to be ready to go on preliminary. So we're trying to get applicants to come in with more finalized preliminary, in terms of the preliminary plat content.
Yeah,
And then
I
that way
think-
seeker and preliminary can all go.
Yeah, I think that for this project, just speaking to this, we're under the 5 acre threshold, so SWIP is not
That would be helpful.
the wall. You know, we gotta do some grading, but it's not like, you know, tearing out, you know, mountains of material. It's a pretty undulating speed. So I don't see any reason why we can't get in there and get pretty close to preliminary. And really looking at preliminary requirements for final, doesn't seem to be a whole lot.
There's not a big difference.
I mean,
There's
our
only a
intent
few
would be to
more
come in
things.
for September and see if we can schedule a public hearing, but obviously, we gotta hear back from the agency for that.
All the lots have road
All right?
frontage.
Very good, thanks, Mike.
So, appreciate it. Thank you.
You have a good night. Okay, Center of Youth.
So that's over on Knoxon Road. When the deli burned down by Knoxon Road?
No, actually, right across from the Dollar General.
Oh, that spot, okay.
Yeah, there's a foundation there, pre-existing.
Okay.
And they want to use the existing foundation. And then go up from there. Rob wasn't here last. If you could just, he did.
Thanks. I heard it was
So
fantastic.
I gave him a little rundown. Same foundation, apartment, Medi-Spa, Botox.
Try to reuse what's on site.
Yep.
The parcel before, the building before it burned down, so the slab's in decent shape. Try to use existing septic, existing well, freshen the sign, freshen lighting, landscaping, you know, everything that's kind of described in a town center code. Building is going to be like a pole barn material with, you know, obviously meeting town center standards as far as colors and detail. We've submitted this is our formal application. Last month was a pre-application, but, you know, we submitted a sample rendering. We'll improve upon that as we move through the process. We show, you know, the parking to be redelineated. There's certain things that we're going to have to go through. Obviously, coordination with DOT using the existing entrance. We do have an existing septic on site, so obviously coordinating capacity with that septic system and making sure we obviously meet current standards as far as reserve and all that. So that's in process. Hopefully we'll be with DOT next week along with Mr. Sal's project. But other than that, yeah, it's a Medi-Spa down below, one-bedroom apartment up top. I don't really anticipate really any heavy truck traffic into this one. Anything that's coming to the site's probably going to be via Amazon or UPS. It's smaller deliveries, mainly just resupplying the spa itself. Even garbage consumption's anticipated to be relatively low because it's a spa, it's packaging. We have a one-bedroom apartment up top. It's a small residential component, so even on the garbage side, we consider this to be a pretty low impact from what it used to be back in its heyday.
Dumpster or no dumpster?
I don't have a dumpster on this
No,
one.
yeah.
I have roll-off, like just the hand carts underneath
Right.
the access to the apartment up top, again, just because we don't really anticipate a lot of heavy garbage use here. But things that we'll be doing in our next submission is we'll coordinate site plan details with the renderings as far as like access to the apartment up top. We'll show material, probably going with like a galvanized metal stair, just so I can survive the elements with, you know, proper handrail and that kind of stuff. But other than that, nothing's really changed. Rob, if you have any questions, maybe.
What kind of structure did you say it was?
So the applicants dabbles in pole barns. So it'll be pole barn construction, with trusses above.
Trusses, okay.
So it'll be an open concept, but, you know, from a framing standpoint, because the thought process was we could use the existing slab, put the poles on the outside, and then insulate on the inside, and create our thermal envelope. So it's just an easier way to kind of frame this. Plus, he actually dabbles in these. So it felt like a good marriage of that. So, but from a detail standpoint, you know, we'll go through town center code and we'll update our renderings as we go to make sure we have that detailed portion.
Okay. And it sounds like it meets the types of uses in the town code. It's a mixed use, you know, commercial and residential.
Right, and the draw of this parcel for the applicant was there is an existing, you have existing utilities on site, existing well, existing blacktop driveway, existing commercial entrance, septic tank, pad. So there is the thought process was this would be a great parcel to kind of restore to what it was. And the only thing that we kind of fall into is, if you look at how the town center code was rewritten, it really forces the buildings to the front of the property, where we have that 0 to the 15-foot front yard setback. You know, utilizing existing components and, you know, minimizing disturbance, you know, that building sits further back. So I think, you know, and speaking to the board at the last meeting, and I think the recommendation from Craig is to formally submit to you guys, which we are right now, discuss, and then refer to the ZBA to seek relief on that front yard setback so we can retain that footprint.
Yeah.
Is that the only thing you'll need to go to the ZBA for?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so technically what we do typically is a coordinated review of seeker. So the unfortunate part is that ZBA can't make a determination until the lead agency makes a seeker determination. So we've gone through this problem in the past. I mean, I don't know if the ZBA has been accepting any applications just to give them any conceptual thoughts in terms of if your client's worried about it. I mean, but otherwise you have to get the plans and the supporting documents and go through the process to the point where presumably this board would be the lead agency, and they can make the neg deck and then make the formal referral for the actual area variance. So it's a minor risk if you ask me, but.
Yeah, it's minor.
I feel confident with just utilizing that structure. I think it just restores to what the site used to be. And if we went the other way and pushed the building up front, I think we're just creating a lot more disturbance, and it just feels right that this piece utilize what's there.
Yeah, you've got an existing well up there. I mean, a lot of it doesn't necessarily make sense in that.
And I think even with the building's position in that corridor, I think some of the existing buildings are set back a little bit.
Yeah, Pepe's is set
Pepe
back.
is back.
The one to the west is kind of up front actually, but it's like a multi-family or something in there.
But I think generally when we kind of go through that criteria, the 5 criteria, I think we can kind of, I feel confident that we would get that variance from the ZBA. Just, we have a lot of good arguments for reusing the site.
Yeah, I agree that go towards the ZBA's decision on the balancing test that they have to do to be able to set establish an area variance. So there's they have a lot of firepower to go in with, I think.
I agree with your approach, trying to do the least amount of disturbance as possible. Try to use that, you reuse the slab and the well and the septic. It's always a good idea to limit this disturbance in general. I mean, that's what the whole seeker is all about, is impact and disturbance. But as far as the, this departure from the town center plan where we're putting parking in the front, we've been doing that in other places now. And, I think the next best thing, the idea, the spirit of the law is to try to limit unsightly features like parking, in view of the quarter. So I think the best thing for our town center, the next best thing, if you can't do that, is to try to do landscaping and we want to make our town center look attractive, especially for commercial businesses and our community. So that's the only thing I would say, is just to make a nice attempt at landscaping.
And there's a sidewalk on here too? Or what are we going to do about that? An easement?
now.
Oh, for now?
Right.
I show the easement, it's just because, I don't know if you've driven by there and actually taken a look at it, but there's a fairly deep swell between our site and the Route 55 paving area.
Okay.
So, if DOT decides to one day come through and make an improvement to kind of lessen that deep swell, there's an easement there for a sidewalk if need be.
Right.
So that's what we've provided.
Oh, so you're providing an easement. I think we usually ask for that. Do you want to put the sidewalk in now, or do you want to leave us the easement and future ability to get in?
Yeah, what we did for Dollar General was on the parcel that was subdivided off there.
On the left side?
Yes.
Facing.
Yes, on the west side there. That parcel, if it's ever developed, would have to put the sidewalk.
Right.
If it's developed new. or redeveloped. I also believe that if the parcel that's west of that one was to be developed and puts a sidewalk, then they would have to continue it. And then now you'd have, you know, 3 straight parcels in a row that have new sidewalk. So it's a way of building up towards it without having a lot of meaningless type of sidewalks, but being able to prepare for it so that it can all function as intended in the future.
And then it would give the town the authority to make the request.
Right.
So we're going to do the same thing here.
I would presume that would be a good way to address it for now.
Okay.
But how do we ensure the future installation of the sidewalk? Is there a bond or something, or
I think we may have had a deed restriction or something added onto that parcel. I know it's in the, I believe it was also in the resolution of the approval. So there's something on record that, you know, basically upon notice by the town, they have a certain amount of time. It wasn't like you have to build it today, but, you know, it's time to make that sidewalk.
And we put it on the drawing so that any future owners know that they're
Right.
subject to that condition.
Right.
You may not be doing it today, but someday we're going to ask you to put that sidewalk in.
It's that parcel west of Dollar General.
Instead
We
of
put a lot of
having
thought
a-
into that. And
A
Craig,
sidewalk to nowhere.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid the
But are we reserving money in some way, or is it just something we're going to require on the
It would
owners?
be an imposition on the owner to do it.
I see.
You came up with a good approach, if I remember correctly, on that parcel west of the Dollar General. And,
I don't recall.
Yeah, I feel like we worked it out.
yeah, yeah, we
I
did.
feel like we had a discussion and we worked it
And
all
it
out.
felt really good.
I just remember going home and telling my wife about it.
Yes.
What a great decision
What a
we made.
great decision. You can't remember.
Yes, I do recall. The sidewalk easement would declare that upon construction of the site
Adjoining.
plan of the adjoining parcel, that it would be incumbent upon them to finish the sidewalk at that moment in time.
Okay. You get, I think you're in like over one of our meetings, so you probably remember that yourself.
The concept has been carried on.
Right.
It's a tough thing to beat here, you know? It's a tough solution, yeah. She also said there was going to be no lip enlargements. It's going to be in the resolution too, she said.
That's,
Yeah.
well, it's tough. I always wanted to do that.
You did?
Yeah. I wish we
All right.
put that in there.
All right, so can we move forward with,
So what action we would be considering? A sketch
there
plan,
anything?
sketch approval? Is that?
Yeah, so I guess through just a couple comments from my letter, you've already started talking about the sidewalks. That was one of the comments I wanted to highlight. You also started talking about the refuse management. You know, I just wanted to make sure that the board was satisfied with the concept of the rollouts. I mean, I can't recall for some reason, I'm probably not normally coming through here on a normal garbage pickup day, but I don't know how many rollouts there are on the rollouts on 55. But you know, some of the things you can do is just make sure that you have some provisions for them to make sure that they bring those in as soon as they're picked up and things like that. You know? So that they're not out there, snowstorms, they get thrown all around. I mean, so the nice thing about refuse management, when it's in a dumpster and it's enclosed, you can't really see it, and then they come and pick it up, and that's not an issue. But I think that if the planning board is happy with that, and apparently some limited real solid waste generation here, right? So, that was one of the considerations I thought the board should talk about. Brian's already addressed the DOT and the health department. I think those are important components on accepting what's there now or figuring out what minor revisions might be required. I had just a couple comments on the parking. I know that that's existing. there might be some ways to actually eliminate some of it. There's a couple awkward spots for one of those parking spaces and stuff, so. And then signage too, you know, being that there's a site plan going on now, you might want to provide the details now because that can all get done at once. If you don't, then you're gonna have to come back at some point in the future, so. If it's, I think the setback is 10 foot to the right of way. That existing base might be closer than that. I'm not sure if that existing base is even really usable anymore. I think it was wood and it's kind of ratty.
Looks questionable.
So you might just want to propose something new and just get that done as well. A couple lighting things I had to put on there. We reviewed the short EAF that was provided. We believe that the application would be deemed unlisted in terms of seeker. A couple very minor things on the short EAF. If it's possible, and if the board chooses to circulate for lead agency after this, it'd be nice if those couple things can be done really quick, and then you get them over to me and to Aletha, and then we can send out the lead agency circulation. There will be general municipal law referral. I just wanted to, you know, reiterate what I wrote to Brian in the email, which was that he came in with a pretty complete plan for the first formal submittal. You know, there's lighting, landscaping, a lot of thought put into everything. So, you know, I think I appreciate that as somebody who's reviewing the plans, as opposed to having to kind of hold hands and try to tell you what you need to do. So, again, thank you for that. And then just, you know, advancing the plans to meet those other standards for town center and preliminary site plan. So tonight we suggested that the board could consider granting sketch site plan approval and then consider initiating that seeker process, same as we just did by declaring its intent to act as lead agency for a coordinated review of unlisted action. We have a draft circulation letter that we prepared. The interested and involved agencies, let's see, do we have a printout of that? I'm sure we do. I could try to go off memory.
Here's the application.
So there's DOT, DEC, Dutchess County Health Department, Conservation Advisory Council, Fire Department. I think that might be it.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the planning department to submit lead agency notice to the agencies you just mentioned and declare us lead agency.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I guess the only thing that I would say to that is that Brian will get us that short EAF, and as soon as we receive that, I'll finalize the lead agency circulation and we'll get that process moving.
Great.
Okay.
And the other thing was sketch site plan, if you're so inclined to.
I'd like to make a motion to grant sketch site plan approval.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And no abstentions and no nays.
Guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Brian.
So we have the extensions. Good night. Take care of yourself. All right,
night.
thank you.
So Great Hollow East,
You had some name conflicts you were worried about, huh?
yeah, well, started a long time ago. It's gone through a number of iterations, but it's actually,
thought it was
engineers have changed and everything on this one,
okay.
so it's gone through a number of things, but the planning board was, I'll say, pretty stern with the applicant before because they had obtained their conditional approval in January of 2022, but then really didn't do anything for quite a long period.
It's where they had a
So-
really steep slope there, right?
Yeah, it's a 3-lot subdivision. There's some steep slopes, some other things, but they made it through that section of the process and had
Yeah.
gotten the board's
Approved
conditional
sketch.
subdivision
Yeah.
approval. It wasn't sketch, it was
Oh, it's
conditional
conditional
final
sub-
subdivision approval.
Okay.
And didn't satisfy the conditions of the approval. Since the board was rather stern, and that was just 2 months ago, if you recall, they have been giving me a lot of the documents that would go towards satisfying those conditions. So they've begun the process with some earnest. So I would say that I'm comfortable suggesting to you that you guys would grant one additional 90-day extension of the approval, which would extend the conditional approval through October 12th of 2023.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hold on, line yet.
You'll be alive.
Oops.
Is that Pescatori? Is that Lou Pescatori's place?
No, this is John Durso, is the applicant.
And, okay,
Greenhaven?
Greenhaven Solar Community, yeah.
You're not building it? You're not done building it yet? What's going on?
Yeah.
No, they've been very diligent as well. They've been satisfying the conditions. There's a lot of legal paperwork associated with this. There's also a pilot, it's a payment in lieu of taxes, and there's been a lot of movement, a lot of work with Craig's office, so that their attorneys have been working with the town attorney, and they've also been working with us on the technical end, and we're very satisfied at this point with their progress. They just got to dot a couple I's and cross a couple T's still. So it's they're knocking on the door here. So basically, we termed this a resolution granting extension of conditional site plan and special permit approval. Technically, the special use permit conditions that are normally there are that they have to start construction within 1 year of the final site plan and complete it within 2 years of the date of the final site plan. We consider the final site plan date is when John applies his signature to those plans. So technically, it's really about extending the site plan here so that they get the time to satisfy the conditions of the site plan. Once John signs that, then they're on the clock on getting the work done. So this would be a 190-day extension that would bring the conditional final site plan approval through October 16th of 2023.
I'll make a motion for granting the extension of a conditional site plan and special permit approval.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions, no nays. Okay.
I think that's it.
Dan, is there any reason why we have to have 5 copies of this every meeting? Legally?
Legally?
I mean, do we need?
No, I think it's just.
What is the board, what do you guys think? I mean.
It's just for ease of
Yeah.
being
I mean,
able
we
to,
have this now.
you know, if something comes up
Yeah.
and you want to be able to look it up, you're not going to be able to look it up with
No,
what's on the
that's
screen.
true.
But
Yeah,
you know, I
yeah.
know Peter tends to bring his little iPad or something in, and he actually kind of looks things up. He might actually go into the plans of the supporting docs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's kind of up to you.
No,
we
I
could
don't
also
wanna
bring up a copy,
create
and
problems.
then if you need it,
We should
can
ask
give it
both
to you.
Peters here. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think let him
Let
opine on
him,
it.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure he would be asking, do we need the screens and the microphones?
that's a good point. He would.
He may ask
mean,
that.
Yeah, he may. He's always slamming the screen.
Aletha's been asking for, you know, the half size on the plans at least,
I
just
like
to make
that.
it smaller for you guys. But,
Yeah.
you know, which is harder to read at times, but also makes it a little more convenient to be able to look at it instead of, you know.
Sure.
I like that idea, yeah. Half sizes are good.
And
Yeah.
then, so maybe if any member feels like there's just too much paper, I know Peter always just kind of leaves it here and then it's kind of a waste of paper.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly,
so
I can take a vote
I
on
feel bad, because
You
I'm
can-
throwing them out myself, unless I have to do research. If it's not, you know, an open and shut case, then I take copies home and do what I need to do.
So maybe we just reduce it to like 1 or 2 copies or
Yeah.
something for those who
Yeah.
want it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and or we can just bring,
print my boarding
we can bring 1 or 2 up,
uh-huh.
you know, and then if you need it, you ask us and we can give it to you.
Yeah, something like that, you know, I mean, we could share it too.
Yeah.
You know, at the meeting.
Yeah, so maybe going
What
forward,
do you
let's
think? You can make this
bring
executive decision
1 or
after
2
the next
copies
meeting.
up total, and then if you need it,
Yeah,
I think
we'll
we just
distribute it.
use them because we asked for them.
yeah, we can just mull it around, you know, and see what happens. Just leave it for now and talk about it later.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're gonna bring.
Food for thought.
Food for thought, oh, I like that. Food for thought.
But there's no legal issues.
No, there you go.
You guys,
I
you
do
guys
think we should-
typically get prepared on your own before the meeting anyway,
Absolutely.
which
Yeah.
is,
We read
which is
everything.
really the key anyway. You
Yeah.
know, your review of things before the meeting makes things a lot easier.
Yeah,
It's also, you'll also have the electronic copies.
Right.
Of everything.
yeah,
Not that you would want to, but if you would.
believe it or not, I'm
That might be better than flipping through the paper.
Yeah, I do prefer, now that we have better cell phone service, you can see it on the phone better,
sure.
you know? When we didn't have cell phone service, you couldn't get in there. Yeah.
So what do you say, you guys give me a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Okay. Claude, can I have a second to close this meeting? Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Don't we say adjourn?
Here's the gavel, adjourn the meeting. The gavel.
Because the difference between